Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. This is my first video reviewing parts kits from World War II. What I'd like to do is start a new series and review different parts kits, show all the pieces, show things that really aren't available anymore. What I'm trying to do is give people a glimpse into what you could have bought in the past, or maybe what's out there right now and it's just too expensive to get and play with. So some of this stuff is still out there, but crazy expensive. Some of it is basically gone. Somehow it was available a couple years ago and it just vanished. It's not on the market anymore. So I thought I'd start with a nice kit here. And what I don't want people to think is I'm trying to show off or, you know, do anything like shady, like put this up for sale right afterwards and make a lot of money. These are just things from my collection. I'm not saying they're not groovy or anything. I really do appreciate them, but I bought them back when they were available and I could get them easily. They weren't super expensive back then, and I really like them. So this is just stuff from my collection. I'm really thankful to have it, and just want to share it with everybody. So let's start with this 1928 Thompson. It's kind of a mix, so it is an A1, but it does have some 1928 stuff to it also. So let's get it laid out and show you what all came with the kit. Alright, now this is everything that came in the box when I ordered it, and I apologize, I don't remember which vendor I got this from. It was several years ago, and it was an online source, but I just don't remember if it was Sarco or IMA or one of those guys. But it wasn't an online auction. I'll say that. These were available in bulk from one of the suppliers, which makes it even more cooler that you could actually just order this thing up. You didn't have to wait for it to appear on Gunbroker or eBay back when they had cool stuff like that. So what we have here is a 1928 A1 kit. This was advertised as a Russian surplus from World War II. We sent Russia a lot of arms back at the beginning of the war to get them started, and Thompsons were a big part of that. Actually, the funny part was they didn't get used very much by the Russians, if at all, and they sat in storage for a long time. So if you check this thing out, it's pretty neat. What you see is the finish is really nice. Now, there is some pitting and there are some dents in the wood, but you can tell this thing was not in any major action. It's not roached out, it's not smashed. It's all there and it's really super nice. Unfortunately, the upper receiver wasn't included at all, and that was just the way that most of these were available. You got a really nice kit, really nice wood, and all the parts are just beautiful, but no receiver at all, except for the stub on the end of the barrel. Now, what they had available after that, which I'm super glad I bought, were these. What we're looking at here is a 28 receiver, and obviously it's been cut in several places, but it includes the pieces that people don't normally get with the M1A ones, which is the nose, and then basically the whole receiver is there. They could be rebuilt. Now, I have read and been told that these receivers, because of the metallurgy, they're not really good for rewelding. For some reason, they'll crack. It's very hard to weld and make it work right. I'll put it that way. What you want to do is, really, if you're going to build a post sample or build a semi-automatic version of it, you want to get something like a Philadelphia Ordnance receiver and start with a known piece where it's all one chunk of the same metal. There's no place where it's going to crack apart and injure you after you've done all the work to put it together. I have made a post sample M1A1 on a Philadelphia Ordnance receiver, It turned out beautiful. The piece was basically perfect. I have no complaints about it, but it was a lot of work. It took a lot of machining and just a lot of time. So let's check this out. This is one of my favorite pieces because it's really something that is hard to find. And let me see if I can get it in the picture here for you. There we go, I had it right there. So this is a 1928 receiver. And the neat thing is, this still has the New York address on it. Now, whenever the 28 A1s started to be procured, it switched to the Bridgeport address, Bridgeport, Connecticut. And that would be like this one. So let's check this one out. Here we have a military 1928 A1 receiver with an auto ordnance prefix on the serial number. You can see the AO. And we flip it over, and on this side, now we see the patent information at the back and the address at the front, and you can see it's the Bridgeport, Connecticut, USA address. So both of these receivers were available at the same time the parts kits were. It's just that you had to buy them separately, and believe it or not, the receivers were almost as expensive as the parts kit itself. I'm trying to think what I paid for this thing. I believe it was probably $500 or maybe $750 at the most. And now it's almost the end of 2017, and a lot of the kits that are advertised on Gunbroker now, or up for auction on Gunbroker, they're trying to get about $2,000 out of them. I don't know if they're selling for that, but that's usually the reserve is maybe $1,800 or something like that. One of the neat things about my 28 receiver is the stamp on it. Now it has the GEG inspector stamp approval right there. See if we can get the light on it. Yeah, right there. And then there's kind of a crown with a W in it. Now what I read was that was from a foreign government, and they bought these before the 28A1s came out. Now I can't remember who that was or where it was, but I'll try and look that up and edit that into the video before I put this on YouTube. So that's kind of cool. That was another part of the history where we made these for different places, different companies, and different countries. And they were manufactured in the States, and then they were shipped out. The Auto Ordnance Corporation really made a ton of money at the beginning of World War II, where all these countries needed guns. And really the only submachine guns out there were German and American. And all the other countries were pretty far behind. And the Thompson was out there, it was ready to go, it was proven, but it was very expensive. So they really raked in the money selling these all over the place, and to the United States as well. Okay, now you'll see that this has the cheesy Lyman stamped L sight. Let me see if I can get that in there where you can see it, and there we go, right there. So this is really kind of lame. As far as I'm concerned, to put this on a 28 Thompson is almost sacrilege. There's nothing there, it's just a hunk of metal. So that came with the kit, but I would never put that on there if I made a post sample out of it, or even a semi. It just wouldn't look right. So what I did, soon after the kits were available, and maybe even after they had pretty much sold out from whatever website I got it from, I was able to find one company that had the correct Lyman adjustable sight for it. and you can see that this thing is just machined like amazing. It's gorgeous. It's just unbelievable that this is a submachine gun rear sight. So this thing can be used like this, or you can flip it up and use it with the peep sight like that. Pretty cool, huh? That's just amazing to me that that's all that machine work was used for a submachine gun. So I picked that up separately. So everything at the top of the screen was bought separately from the parts kit, and a lot of times if guys are selling them now, they'll include a demilled receiver, which is smart because that basically makes it a complete kit. But for mine, when I found that really high serial number 1928 non-A1 receiver, I just had to have it. I thought it was really cool. Okay, so let's check out some of the neat things about this kit. Some people may not know exactly what the difference is between a 28 and an M1A1, and let's just go over some of those things for you. One of the main differences from a 28 to an M1A1 is the barrel, the whole front end assembly, really. You can see that this 28 has the fin barrel, which would later be smooth just like the M1A1, but the earlier ones have the fins. It also has the cuts compensator on the end. Now these cuts compensators are different from the original Thompsons, the 21s, but they look very similar. So if you would be using one of these 28 kits to build a 21 replica, maybe with the front pistol grip and things like that, it's going to look fine. Most people won't notice. I think the fins are a little bit bigger on a 28 and things like that, but they're minor details. So, but this is what you get in a 28 and a 28A1 front end. And you'll notice this cut right here, that's for putting a drum magazine in, because the drums slide in from the side. Otherwise this looks extremely similar to an M1A1 front end. Wanted to show on this front end also that there's a real lack of markings on the nose. Usually we'll have a lot of proof marks, and here it looks like we just have a couple punch marks. We don't have any inspector acceptance stamps on the side. This is our ejector here. Kind of turned out a little bit. Don't have anything in here. Now there's probably a number underneath this grip mount, which I'll show you in a second on a demilled, another demilled nose without that mount in there. We have also some type of a mark here, maybe a witness mark, and that's where you torque it to. I'm just guessing on that. But that's a nice close-up of the front end. And let me grab a nose here and show you. We would have a hidden serial number underneath the mount. In this case it's AO for Auto Ordnance 82035. And again, no stamps except that familiar punch mark and this horizontal mark over here. The only markings that I could find on the front ends of these things. Now the bolt definitely looks different. This is the original style bolt, and you can see that it's hollowed out. It's lighter, and that's why these have a higher cyclic rate of fire. Instead of just a handle on the side, this has what we call an actuator on the top, and it has a Blish lock. Now the Blish lock actually provided a locked bolt for the original Thompsons, the 28 or the 21s and the 28s, and it was discovered to be completely unnecessary. And with testing, they actually shot these without the Blish lock. I'm sure that with a lighter bolt, it did make a difference if you left the lock out, and it wouldn't, the actuator wouldn't work because it uses that to grab the bolt. But regardless, it is superfluous, and it was completely eliminated on the later Thompsons. So that's why that's something that M1A1 collectors don't recognize. Now, some of the smaller details, hopefully this will be in focus. You can see the S stamp, that's for Savage. It's also going to be on our Blish lock. And then on the actuator, it looks like a 5. That's really another S, but it's a different style. That's for Stevens. That's the sister plant to Savage. Now, this funny looking thing on the front of the bolt is really just a rocker that makes the firing pin come out. So the firing pin isn't exposed until the bolt is in battery. That was common for a lot of pre-war submachine gun designs, but again, it's not necessary. It makes a lot more work. It's additional parts that the gun doesn't need, and so those were eliminated on later designs. Everything else about the 28 bolt is going to be very similar to the M1A1, the style for the extractor, the groove for the ejector, and the machining on the bottom. Except, you'll notice this doesn't have a rear notch for the sear. On the lower, we see that the wood is in great shape. So is the butt plate. Just really cool. Really, really neat that this thing went over to Russia and sat in a warehouse and didn't get to see the war. It's amazing. See the paddle style selectors and safety. And now on the 21s and 28s, you had a detachable buttstock. This was eliminated on the later military M1 and M1A1 Thompsons because, again, it's more parts, more machining, and more time to make it that way. So that was one of the things they did to save money and time. Now, for those guys that collect M1A1 kits, this might look a little bit different for you, because note that there's no number on the bottom pad right here, right in front of the pistol grip, where you normally see the serial number on an M1A1 kit. What you have to do is slide off the buttstock, and then you can see the serial number. There's also a stamp back here, and it's really hard to see. It almost looks like it says 23. Not sure if that's a Russian number or a drawing number or just some type of assembly number. You just never know. Sometimes they put unit numbers in the guns and things like that. Also, one thing I wanted to point out, we have the milled sling swivels here. These would later be stamped on the M1s and the M1A1s. So those look different. Give you a close-up of the stampings on the side here. We have full auto, the words above each other. Sometimes that's written in one line depending on the manufacturer. In the back we have an oiler, which again is more parts, just more stuff to make and more stuff to cause problems later on. That was changed. And we have a different style spring guide and buffer than the M1 and M1A1. but works about the same. Looks similar and works about the same. Magazines are going to be the same for all Thompsons. You can use whatever you want in a gun like this because it is cut for the drum. That's what these notches are for right here. Or you can use the 20 round or 30 round box magazines, and both of those would have been used during the war. The British used the drums. I'm sure Russia, had they used these guns a lot, they would have used the drums. For some reason, the army really didn't like the drums. They thought they were too noisy and too problematic, so they only issued the stick magazines. Okay, well, I hope you liked my first video on parts kits. I'd like to do a lot more of these for you on the rare and valuable stuff out there, and we'll take you through my shop eventually, and we'll see all the cool stuff from World War II that's really not seen anymore. There's just so much cool stuff out there that really doesn't see the light of day anymore, and people have it and they really don't share. And that's what I want to do. I want everybody to see this cool stuff that's just hard to find anymore. So this is Craig from War Trophies. I'm signing off, and I hope to see you soon in another video. Thanks.